One of the 9 countries with nuclear weapons is facing a crisis. Pakistan has the 5th largest population in the world and is strategically located between China, India, and Iran. But unlike its neighbors, internal conflicts, natural disasters, and external pressures have made it impossible for the country to prosper. Despite having one of the youngest populations, its government's instability, weak economy, and $125 billion debt burden have led Pakistan into the arms of China. And this dependency might ultimately lead to its downfall. According to the State Bank of Pakistan, the country's external debt servicing has reached $29 billion a year. That's 45% of all external income and remittances that the country brings in. The country has borrowed from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in an attempt to jumpstart growth in a country that has been starved for infrastructure investments. However, chronic government budget deficits have been paired with low tax collection, leaving the country increasingly underwater. The hope was that Pakistan could develop a stronger industrial base and become less reliant on imports to sustain the local population. In the past, policies like import tariffs have been implemented to protect domestic businesses and boost industrial growth. Pakistani leadership has also tried giving rebates on exports and subsidizing energy costs. Many industries became reliant on those subsidies in order to be competitive. Unfortunately, this has led to Pakistani debt ballooning, triggering a push by the IMF in 2019 to remove the subsidy. And as the local economy falters, Pakistan's import reliance grows. In 2022, Pakistan exports were just shy of $40 billion. But in that same year, imports were $84 billion, an increase of more than 35% from the previous year. This is draining the country's foreign exchange reserves. As the government's store of dollars and other foreign currencies dwindle, the Pakistani rupee weakens as well. This is a problem because as a country's domestic currency weakens, it becomes harder to go out and buy what you need abroad. In May of 2023, Pakistani inflation was as high as 38%. Inflationary environments are always hard on citizens and the small businesses that underpin a healthy economy. To cut inflation, the State Bank of Pakistan has tightened its monetary policies, raising interest rates to over 20%. But controlling inflation and promoting economic growth are often at odds with one another. While inflation hurts consumers, businesses struggle to finance growth when the cost of borrowing is so high. Only the most established businesses can stomach borrowing at those rates. It's a vice grip that continues to squeeze Pakistan tighter and tighter. And as the government's deficit grows, it has less and less resources to provide the security, education, and stability that is needed to attract foreign investment into Pakistan. Amongst the reasons that Pakistan struggles with development is its geography. Like its neighbor Afghanistan, much of the terrain is rugged and mountainous. Their shared border is nearly impossible to secure, leading to instability. The terrain simultaneously makes internal infrastructure costs high while creating a fractured internal politics. That diverse geography contributes to ethnic and linguistic diversity, leading to political tensions. In the past, proximity to Afghanistan and Iran made Pakistan a favored U.S. ally. And the relationship did prove beneficial during the war in Afghanistan, where more than 80% of the supplies needed by NATO forces in Afghanistan passed through Pakistan via the port of Karachi. But that war, along with the US's attention and resources, have largely left the region. And unfortunately, Pakistan still sits near the junction of the Indian, Eurasian, and Arabian tectonic plates. The collision of these plates, particularly the Indian and Eurasian, creates significant seismic activity. In the last 5 years, Pakistan has had 2,419 earthquakes exceeding a magnitude of 4. The Indus River and its tributaries does give Pakistan some advantages at internal navigation and contributes to its relatively high rates of urbanization. But Pakistan has minimal domestic oil resources to help power its people. As the Pakistani rupee weakens, fuel prices soar, making job creation even more difficult. In 2019, the Pakistan government implemented the Alternative and Renewable Energy Policy to increase the share of green energy in the country's grid. By the beginning of 2024, Pakistan had 43,000 megawatts of power generation, primarily provided by thermal and hydroelectric power, while wind, solar, and nuclear account for just 13% of the grid. Despite substantial investments into energy production, Pakistan still grapples with regular load shedding. This further cripples businesses' ability to survive or thrive. And since the government doesn't have the capacity to bail out the $11 billion of debt that the Pakistani power companies hold, the only pathway to funding is increasing prices for customers. When the average citizen is facing inflation across the board, you can imagine how politically unpalatable that would be. After the partition of British India in 1947, Pakistan separated from both the British Empire and India. 20 prime ministers have been sworn into office in Pakistan since 1947, but none of them have finished their full 5-year term. Frequent changes in government due to no confidence motions, resignations, or dismissals by the president are the norm. Pakistan has also seen multiple military coups and regular corruption charges against its leaders. Most recently, Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan was removed from office after losing a vote of no confidence in the parliament. And after 2 years of political turmoil, Pakistan went to the polls and elected Shehbaz Sharif. Sharif has become prime minister and heads a new coalition government. But there is nothing to suggest that Pakistan has a Lee Kuan Yew type figure ready to take charge and turn things around. This opens the door for external parties to step in. China has made Pakistan a cornerstone of its Belt and Road Initiative. They're financing the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Infrastructure Project to the tune of $64 billion. It's one of the largest economic development projects in South Asia and one of China's largest foreign investments. It connects China's westernmost city, Kashgar, through most of Pakistan's major cities down to its 2 deep-water ports on the Arabian Sea. Strategically, China wants to use Pakistan to bypass choke points in the South China Sea and Strait of Malacca that could limit its energy imports. The project is reportedly going to add about 8,000 megawatts of electricity to Pakistan's grid when it's completed. And the propaganda says it will address energy shortages, create employment opportunities for millions of people, and foster cooperation between the countries involved. However, progress has fallen far short from its initial plans. The first phase of CPEC, focused on infrastructure, energy, and port development projects, has been hampered by rampant corruption and missed deadlines. The second phase of CPEC, aiming to establish 33 special economic zones, has also seen delays. One high-profile endeavor, the Main Line 1 railway project from Karachi to Peshawar, have stalled out. Pakistan's political instability, financial crisis, and terrorism have all limited the implementation of these projects over the last 10 years. And this has led to increasing tensions between the two allies. China accounts for about $30 billion of Pakistan's total foreign debt. This raises concerns about Pakistan's ability to translate that debt into growth and economic impact for both countries. And in an attempt to smooth things over, Pakistan has ramped up its acquisition of Chinese military equipment. JF-17 Thunder combat aircraft, VT-4 battle tanks, and a collection of naval vessels and air defense systems have been acquired to satiate both sides. But a growing military partnership makes one of Pakistan's other neighbors very nervous. Since the partition of British India in 1947, Pakistan and India have gone to war 4 times. The countries draw sharp contrasts in religion while sharing a 2,000-mile border. Pakistan is largely Muslim, while India is primarily Hindu. Just 2 years after their independence, the First Indo-Pak War broke out over the ownership of Jammu and Kashmir. The United Nations mediated the line of control, which comprises territories within Kashmir, to be controlled by parties from both India and Pakistan. In 1965, the Second Indo-Pak War occurred over escalated tension over the Kashmir region. In 1971, civil unrest in East Pakistan, modern-day Bangladesh, led to another conflict. Pakistan's surrender to the Indian-supported Bangladeshi troops led to the creation of Bangladesh as an independent nation. In 1999, yet another war broke out when Pakistani soldiers and militants entered into the Indian side of the line of control. The Kargil War ended in a decisive victory for India and the control of another sector of territory. 4 wars in 50 years leaves a deep cultural scar. Kashmir remains one of the most militarized regions on Earth. Both sides see investments in defense technology and equipment as risky escalation that needs to be reciprocated. Unfortunately for Pakistan, modern India possesses a much larger economy and population. In a future conflict, another decisive defeat would be likely. Such a military defeat would cause huge economic losses and likely trigger a debt default. Its burden to the IMF, World Bank, and CCP continues to mount without the corresponding economic growth to make up for it. And there's only one other resource that Pakistan can offer up for sale. There are currently only 9 countries with nuclear weapons. This is slightly misleading because countries like Germany and Japan have the technical acumen to build a nuclear weapon, but are constrained by policy and military doctrine. I suspect that if Russia or China were threatening their homelands, non-proliferation treaties would be irrelevant. The same could be said about Saudi Arabia. They are not currently in direct conflict with Iran. Both countries prefer to conduct proxy conflicts in places like Syria and Yemen, but no one would ever project calm in the Middle East. If things were to escalate into a direct conflict, then the Saudis face a conundrum. Their pockets are far deeper than the Iranians, but they lack the population and military capability to handle the Iranian armed forces and its proxies. If they felt they needed to buy a nuclear weapon, then Pakistan is the most likely seller. The Saudis share a majority Sunni Muslim identity and have the resources to solve some of Pakistan's economic problems. Now, this would be one of the largest geopolitical dominoes to fall in recent history. I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying that it is a certainty, but it is a potential escalator in a region already under serious